Hey there. Welcome to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast. I'm your host, Amy Van Meel, and I'm on a mission to inspire and teach change makers and budding entrepreneurs who've got big dreams and hearts to help others through their business. If you're wrestling with the day-to-day biz stuff, you're in the right place because that's the kind of stuff we talk about here. So let's dive into today's topic. Today, I want to talk about limiting beliefs. Now, I'm excited for this topic for two reasons. One, because I hope that it's going to create some massive change in your current reality. It doesn't take much, but all of a sudden a little awareness will change, massive things. And two, because I'm excited for when those changes come in, how powerful you're going to be in your business and in your life. Like I said, it can be small things. It doesn't have to be big, but all of a sudden, your life just starts to open up and change. So limiting beliefs. Now, I don't want to get into the heavy technical details and definitions of limiting beliefs. So let me give you a couple of examples of what a limiting belief might be. Money doesn't grow on trees. I don't have enough experience or knowledge or money. My body just can't move like that. This one comes up for me in Zumba all the time. I'm not good enough, smart enough, talented enough. I don't have what it takes. So limiting beliefs are false truths that we tell ourselves. And when I say beliefs, there's tons of really way smarter than me people out there that talk about the difference between a belief and a truth. But essentially a belief is something that's patterned in call it the subconscious area of your brain. You assume it to be true because you just it's running on the background. Right? It's like you're in an elevator having a conversation. There's elevator music in the background. You don't necessarily notice it unless it's really bad. You don't necessarily notice it, but it's still there. You can still hear it. If you all of a sudden paid attention to it, this is where the awareness comes in. You can hear that belief coming in. Now, here's the thing with limiting beliefs. They are non-serving beliefs, meaning that limiting beliefs basically keep you where you are or pull you backwards. So if you ever try to do something new or you want to, expand in some way, that's when the beliefs get the loudest. So remember I talked about the one, my body just can't move like that from Zumba? So I love Zumba. I've just started taking it in the beginning of January. I go once a week. Mondays are Zumba night, and I love it. I got to tell you, I'm not that great at it, and I'm totally fine with that. But what I love about Zumba, besides the fact that I get out and I move, and it's super fun, and it's basically like an hour of, we'll say choreographed dancing, even though my steps are never quite the same as what the instructor is doing. The great thing that I love about Zumba is the stuff that nobody ever talks about. Nobody talks about going to Zumba and working on your inner self. But here's what happens to me in Zumba. So salsa especially, I've never had formal dance training other than, when I was in high school and we did dance class. And so salsa, I've never learned how to dance salsa. And I love the way it looks, but I look at people and I'm like, how are my limbs and joints supposed to do that? So when I'm in class, I find myself thinking every now and again, oh man, my body just doesn't move like that, or I can't do this. And as soon as I recognize that, as soon as I hear that thought come in, I'm like, well, hang on. Who says I can't do this? Maybe I just try. I could surprise the heck out of myself and actually kind of look kind of good doing it. And more times than not, the thing, whatever it is that I'm struggling with, that particular step or that particular hip movement or whatever it is, suddenly becomes easier because I've identified the fact that I was limiting myself by saying, well, I can't do this. And then, well, what's the harm in trying? There really isn't. I mean, the fantastic thing about our Monday night Zumba class is that the instructor turns off the lights in the room. So it's just the lights on the stage. So and the truth is, I think most people, they're too busy paying attention to what they're supposed to be doing to be looking at you and judging what you're doing, right? So I know I cannot pay attention to what other people are doing. There might be a moment out of the corner of my eye if somebody's I can kind of tell out of the corner of my eye they're really nailing it. I'm like, wow, they're really good. And I feel a little bit, intimidated by it. But most of the time I'm like, what are my feet supposed to be doing? How do I move my arms? What do my hips do? Oh, right, we're supposed to do this combination and now we're supposed to do that. I'm too busy trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. And isn't that true for all things in life? I mean, really, we're so busy trying to figure out what we're supposed to be doing that more often than not, we don't have time or attention left over to judge on somebody else. So here's the thing about limiting beliefs. They are often learned behaviors. So often they come from our past or from our history or our experiences. And they can come from all kinds of things. Like most of us, if you grew up, I think in the 80s and quite possibly at any point in time, you've heard money doesn't grow on trees, right? And there is a truth to that. It's a true fact. Money doesn't, like there aren't dollar bills dropping off of trees. But I mean, you could sell trees and make money. So then, in a way, money does grow on trees. But basically, the idea of money not growing on trees means that it's not readily available, right? There's a limited supply. There's a finite resource of money, and you can only have so much of it. That's a limiting belief because what it means is there's no point in trying. You can struggle and you can push and you can keep going, but to what end? I mean, there's a finite resource of this, this thing we call money. Well, that's a limiting belief because it keeps you from doing the really, truly great things and getting paid well for it. I mean, let's look at Oprah. I was just listening to a podcast of Oprah's, and I love her Super Soul. I think it's Super Soul Sundays or Super Soul Sessions. I listen to it all the time. So if you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend it. But if we look at Oprah and you look at where she started, she didn't start, coming from a really wealthy family. She did not have every opportunity handed to her. She had all kinds of things working against her. And if you look at her now, if she believed that money didn't grow on trees and that she shouldn't get rewarded, financially compensated for what she brings, she would not be the powerhouse that we know now. So I'm sure Oprah had to do her own work to get through that kind of stuff. But I mean, how much would the world be missing if somebody like that just said, well, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Money doesn't grow on trees. I need more. You already have everything you need. You just got to recognize it and go for it. So what can we do if we have those beliefs? Well, the very first thing is to identify them. So that's why I wanted to give you examples today versus, just giving you a dry definition. Because let's face it, definitions don't help us that much. If somebody told me what an eraser was, I'd be like, okay, how does it work? And then once you see it, all of a sudden, oh, that's how an eraser works. Super simple, right? I found myself the other day, as a side note, thinking about erasers and what they were made of. One day I'll have to Google it, but that's not today. So the first thing that you need to do is identify the belief. You can figure it out. If you think about, here's a really super simple thing that you can do. Think about something that you want to try. I don't care what it is, whether it's making a new meal or trying a new sport like Zumba, or you want to get a raise at work. Whatever it is that you want to try. What's the first thing that pops into your mind? Like immediately after. Usually that's going to be your limiting belief because that's your brain going, whoa, hold up. We're going into territory that we're not familiar with. We don't know what happens there. We don't know how we can keep you safe there. Let's just stop this train right now before we get rolling, right? So that's a great way to identify your limiting belief. The next thing that I want you to do, definitely if you can, write it down because it's a fantastic thing to do to be able to write it down and sort of look at it a couple of times. But the next thing that I want you to do is to look at that belief and say, where or how did I learn this belief? Now remember, I said before that limiting beliefs are learned. We're not inherently born with them. They are learned beliefs, which is why we all have different ones. If they were inherent within us and everybody had the exact same ones, then every single person on the planet would be dealing with the exact same set of beliefs. But we're not. Right? The beliefs that I have, the limiting beliefs that I have and I need to work through are not going to be identical to the ones that you need to work through because they're learned. My experiences and my life is different than yours, right? So ask yourself, where did I learn this? And not from a place of judgment. So like I said, when we're talking about money doesn't grow on trees, we're not going to go back at your parents and be like, I can't believe you guys taught me this. What a terrible belief that you taught me. Thanks a lot, Mom and Dad, for saddling me with this. It's not what it's about. It's just figuring out where's the root of it. Then I want you to ask, is this belief serving me or hindering me? Now, my guess is that 9 times out of 10, you're going to find this belief is hindering you. The only times that I find limiting beliefs serve you is when, that you're in this, like literally a spot where there's going to be some danger and it kind of gets you out of there. But very rarely does that happen. Usually, if you notice, so ladies, I'm sure that you can relate. Guys, I don't know, because I think we operate in the world a little bit differently. But women, if you are in a situation where someone comes up to you, typically a guy, but someone comes up to you and they say or do something that seems, totally fine and very surface, whatever, but you get that like internal, something's wrong here, I need to get out of here. That's not a belief, that's your intuition. That is your internal sensors saying something's off, leave now. Now, I'm not going to talk about this in depth today, but if that comes up, get out of there. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care, don't try to reason it away. Well, but maybe they just don't understand, or but they probably didn't mean it that way. Doesn't matter. If your sensors are going off, get out of there, girl. It's not worth you staying in there. So when you're looking at your beliefs and you're asking, is it serving or hindering me? It's not that guttural reaction. It's a point of coming at where it's like, okay, I really want to do this thing. And it's saying, no, you can't do this thing. It's saying you don't have the tools or the equipment or the experience or whatever it is. So that belief is not serving you. It's not doing anything good for you. So that's the second thing I want you to ask. Then try a reframe. Now this is a powerful, I can't even explain to you, like all capital letters, powerful technique that a friend of mine taught me just a few months ago. And I admit some days I do better with it than others, but it's something that I've had to learn. And it's been a very powerful technique for not just like busting that limiting belief, but allowing you to sort of explore what it would look like if you didn't have it. So ask, what would it look like if I believed, and then, the opposite of your belief. So if we're talking about money doesn't grow on trees, what would it look like if I believed there was an infinite amount of money in the world and I could be well compensated for the work that I do? What would that look like? And then just, let yourself ruminate on it for a little while. Because the cool thing is, all of a sudden possibility pops up in your mind. You're not saying, I'm going to believe this. Money doesn't grow on trees. No, I'm going to believe that there's tons of money and it's just going to come to me, because it's too much of a jarring change. Your brain will just say, well, you're a liar. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not how it goes. We've had our entire life believing this way. You can't tell me that now in the next, 20 seconds, we're going to change 20, 30, 40, 50 years worth of believing, right? You can't just do that. So allow your brain to sort of explore the possibilities. Our brains love doing this kind of stuff. And if you don't believe me, have you ever laid out on the grass, not in the snow because it's too cold outside, but if you've ever laid out in the grass and just looked at the clouds and sort of imagined like, oh, it's up there, or, oh, what kind of a shape is that? Or, just sort of let your mind wander. Your mind loves this idea of exploring, what's possible, what's out there. That's how all the best ideas come out, because people are trying them out. They're like, what does that look like? What would it look like if? So do the reframe on your belief, whatever that is. If it's, I don't have what it takes, what would it look like if I had all the tools and resources I needed to accomplish this goal? What would that look like? I can't tell you, but your brain will start to, percolate on that, and I think you'll be dumbfounded by the cool things that will pop up, like, oh, well, this could happen, and oh, this could happen. Then the last thing I want to ask you, and not the last thing, but the next question that you would talk about in your sequence would be, what would it take to insert whatever it is? So, we talked about money doesn't grow on trees. Well, what would it look like if I believed money was an infinite resource and I would be well compensated for my work? So then the next question is, what will it take to earn $10,000 a month, $1 million in a year, $10 million in my lifetime? Pick whatever number it is. If there's sort of a goal in the back of your mind that's like, man, I really would love to earn that. What would it take to do that? If you're thinking about, I don't have what it takes, we talked about what would it look like if I believed I already had everything that I needed and I could just go and get that, whatever that goal is that I set for myself. What will it take to feel like I've got this? Now, this is the in-between step. It's literally the stepping stones between the limiting belief you have and the future that you just imagined for yourself. It basically now says to your brain, okay, so I'm here. I understand that right now, I still kind of have this belief of I don't have what it takes. I've explored the idea of what it would look like if I had everything that I felt that I needed. So now let's talk about the in-between. What will it take to, get the education, find a new job, bring in more clients, feel confident in the work that I do? Whatever that looks like, what will it take to do that? Okay, so if you've been listening to my podcast episodes so far, we are in episode 4 right now. So if you've listened to the other ones, you know that I always want to give you some actionable content, something that you can actually work on. Because I don't want you just to listen to this and be like, okay, Amy, that's really great, and, never do anything with it. I want you to be able to bust through this stuff because, man, if I haven't said it enough, the world needs what you got, babe. You need to be able to show up and bring it out and be able to serve in the best way that you possibly can. And if you're ever thinking, I don't have what it takes, or there's already too many of what I do, or why would anybody pay me for this anyway? Please keep listening to the podcast because I'm going to keep working through all this stuff with you. There's business stuff like understanding, business plans and P&L statements and marketing and, all that kind of stuff. And I'll talk about that on the podcast too, but I want to touch on some of these softer points at the beginning because these are going to be huge, foundation setters for you. They'll bust through all the crap that's been holding you back so that as we start putting in those business strategies, dealing with the day-to-day business stuff, you're not held back by all this, junk that's just sort of weighing you down. So I have a download for you. Like I said, I always got your back. I want to make sure that you can get going. If you head to daretobegin.net/beliefs with an S at the end, you're going to find I have a download for you that basically reminds you of the structure that we talked about today. I would recommend download that and print it off and keep it, print 2, 3, 4 copies. I don't care how many copies you have, but put them in places where you find that maybe you get dragged backwards or your mind sort of starts to wander off. And before you know it, you're starting to listen to these negative thoughts again and they stop you from going for your goals. So if it were me, I would probably have a copy in my office, not necessarily post it on the wall because I want to have positive reinforcements around me, but somewhere that I could easily grab it. So if all of a sudden I'm like, I'm just stuck in this, I could pick up that piece of paper and head over into I have a meditation chair / a reading chair in the corner of my office. I would go there. I want to step out of the physical area of my desk and just change my surroundings ever so slightly so I can do some inner work. If you find yourself thinking about these things when you're making dinner, have a copy in your kitchen. Post it up on your fridge. The cool thing is, if you post stuff like this up in your fridge and people come over, it can spark some really cool conversations. And if they're like, well, this is just complete baloney, thanks for coming over. How about you get going? I think your mom's calling, right? You don't want people to be holding you back from making progress. And believe me, as you continue to grow, pursue more growth, there are going to be people who will show up, especially at the beginning, until you sort of, if you rearrange your tribe a little bit and you bring in people who are really excited for where you're going, there's going to be people around potentially that just don't get it. And they think, well, this is just silly. It's the woo-woo stuff. It's fluff and stuff. Why do you need to do that? If you look at where they are, if they're nailing it and their life is exactly what you want to have, all right, maybe pay attention. But my guess is that probably they're not super happy with where they're going either. And they're reacting out of fear because growth means change. Change means moving out of our comfort zone. As human beings, we don't like doing that, but you're bigger than that. You have the power, you have the confidence, and heck, you got my support all the way through. So get to it. Start busting through this stuff. And then another spot that you might have your limiting beliefs, I love to put things up in my bathroom. Now, I often have like a little post-it that's on the mirror if there's something that I'm kind of working through, or a little sentence or a little quote or something that I want to remind myself of. Pop it up in the mirror. When I'm brushing my teeth every day, I can look at that and for 2 minutes while the toothbrush is running, I can just sort of go through this and go, oh, okay, what would that look like? I actually have in my bedroom, on the mirror in my bedroom, I have a post-it right now that just very quickly talks about these beliefs. You could do it on a post-it as well. So I have, what would it look like if? What will it take to? I want to just have these short little things that can remind me to sort of reframe what I'm thinking about. Why am I allowing myself to be sidelined with this? I got big things to do in the world. I want to inspire others. I want to teach others. I want to help others be able to really be super successful in their business. And I want to make it easier for you to do so. That's the whole reason I started the podcast. I'm not here on the podcast because I need to listen to myself talk. I'm here because I want to help others get going. All right? Fair? So, like I said, head on over to daretobegin.net/beliefs. Get your free download and subscribe to the podcast or subscribe to the mailing list on my website so that you can get these podcasts every week so that you can keep growing. Because, man, you got big things to do, and I'm excited to help you get there. I wish you a fabulous week, a fantastic Tuesday, and that every good thing happens to you today. See you next time.